So the first part of today's webinar is about opening the request. We're going to learn a 7-step process. Is that 7? Yeah, 7-step process. And the first 3 parts of this process are opening the request, making a pre-request, and then setting the context. So here are your 3 logical, progressive ideas for how to make a request. Open, pre-request, context. How do we do that? So if you have a request for somebody, don't just ask them. Just asking them is not very strategic. It might be okay in some situations if you have a very good relationship or if you're very friendly. When I speak to my best friend, I don't follow this strategic process. Usually, I might do if it's a big request, but if it's a very casual request, I'm just going to ask. So today's strategy is a logical, powerful step-by-step process for business situations. So number 1, open the request, pre-request, 2 pre-request, number 3, set the context. Let's look at the language. So when we want to open the request, it's always important to try to get somebody's time. Most requests fail because the request is given at the wrong time. People will interrupt somebody in the cafeteria. They interrupt somebody when they're walking to their office. They interrupt somebody when they're writing an important email. The first skill is knowing when to ask. Don't ask at the wrong time. So the first step is just to have the time. Hey, do you have a minute to talk about something important? John, sorry, do you have a minute to talk about something important? Hey, John, could I get a minute of your time when you get a chance? So the first phrase, do you have a minute to talk about something important, means I hope it's now. The second phrase, could I get a minute of your time when you get a chance, means now or later are both okay. You tell me when is best for you. We can use the word perhaps to make it a little bit softer if you want, a little bit softer, a really natural language there. Hey, do you have a minute to talk about something important? Do not talk about your topic here. And this is really important. Don't be so specific. So if you have a request to take a day off tomorrow, don't say, hey, do you have a minute to talk about my day off tomorrow? The person doesn't know about your request yet. They have not heard anything. So don't give them too much information yet. This first statement should be extremely ambiguous. Talk about something important. Talk about something personal. Do you have a minute to talk about something that would help me? So just try to keep it ambiguous. Do you have a minute to talk about something important? Is perfect. Could I get a minute of your time when you get a chance? Is perfect. Okay, so our second step is the pre-request. Again, don't say your request. And this is such a common mistake people make. Here, the pre-request is telling the listener that you are going to ask something in the future, not now. You're going to ask something. This is a really, really, really basic but important business communicative skill. I think it doesn't matter the language, but maybe different languages have different strategies. This is what we call expectation management. Make sure the other person has the right expectation. So they need to understand what the purpose of the meeting is. If somebody says to me, hey, Nick, can I talk to you for a few minutes? And then they say nothing, I get frustrated. Hey, Nick, could I talk to you for a minute? I'm angry already. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. Because my first question is, why? What's the purpose? What's the goal? And I know that might seem tough. I know that might seem direct, but the reality is time's short. Managers have to deal with a lot of different people. So it's your job to make a pre-request. Just tell the person that you're going to make a request. I have a small request of you. I need a little help with something. I'm here to ask a favor. Using these three techniques, just choose one. You don't need to use all of them. Using these three techniques, you can tell the other person that they don't need to prepare for that meeting. They don't need to think about or imagine or strategize or use their time before the meeting. Again, most communicative failures I see happen because there's not good expectation management. Again, when my staff come to me and say, hey, Nick, can I speak to you for a minute? My brain instantly thinks, what's the topic? Do I need to prepare something? What should I do before? I'm a responsible manager. I think, I try. So when my staff want to speak to me, I want to be prepared as much as possible. That's my responsibility. So I hate surprises. I don't like surprises. But if somebody says, I have a small request of you, it tells me instantly that I don't need to prepare. Hey, I need a little help with something. Okay, great. I don't need to prepare. I'm here to ask a favor. Great. I don't need to prepare. Instantly, my stress level goes down because I know that the other person's asking for my help. I know the purpose of the meeting. That should be your most basic business communicative strategy, managing the expectation of the other person. Okay, so what about part three? Part three, set the context. Set the context means you need to a little bit tell the background of the story before you make the request. Usually in an email, we do it the opposite way. We make the request first and we give the background second. The reason why is that in an email or a text message, people are very fast at reading. So we want to get to the key information. But when we speak, people only get the information little by little as we talk. So they need to have context. It's important that you give the background before you ask in a spoken situation. But in a written situation, you can change this order. All right, so again, one more time, context. So context, we can say, yeah, to cut a long story short, or I'm in a little trouble with, or the thing is. The thing is a nice phrase we can use for any situation to highlight or highlight a background or highlight a context. So step by step. Hey, do you have a minute to talk about something important? Yeah, I have a small request of you. To cut a long story short, and that's my background. That's my context. All right, let's have a look at an example. Here's a situation. So this is kind of a fantasy situation, but could be real. You have an emergency, sudden emergency. You need to visit a sick family member in the hospital tomorrow. It happens, right? You need a day off tomorrow, but the timing is not good. The timing is bad. There's a big project deadline by the start of next week. Speak to your manager. So here we've got a realistic situation. You want to get a day off tomorrow. You need to speak to your manager, but the timing is not good. How do we go through these processes? Remember the first three steps: open, pre, request, context. So nice and simple. We're going to say, excuse me, John, do you have a minute to talk about something important? That's the opening. Pre-request. I have a small request of you. Context. To cut a long story short, I have a personal family emergency that needs me to go to the hospital tomorrow. Now, there are two things to remember here. Number one, in your context, do not say that you need a day off tomorrow. That's really important. Do not say, to cut a long story short, I have a personal family emergency and I need a day off tomorrow. It's too early in the process. It's too early. That's the next step. So just talk about the need, the demand, the cause and effect. Talk about the cause of this request. Number two, look at the strategic way. I said, I have a small request of you. So using words like, I have a small request, makes the other person feel this is not so big, it's not so important. It's a psychological technique we can do to make other people think, oh, it's not so big. That's up to you. It's your choice, but I recommend that strategy. So here's how I talk to my boss. My boss is John. I say, hey, excuse me, John, do you have a minute to talk about something important? Yeah, great. Hey, I have a small request of you. To cut a long story short, I have a personal family emergency that needs me to go to the hospital tomorrow. That's my first three steps. The final thing I want to say is I didn't give too much detail. Maybe my sister had a traffic accident, maybe my sister's having a baby, something like that. You don't need to give too much specific information. That's your choice. You can be a little bit ambiguous. So I have a personal family emergency is a great phrase you can use in English to say, don't ask me. And good managers will never ask you. Bad managers might ask you, oh, what is the emergency? And obviously you have to deal with that situation, but you shouldn't need to give the specific details. Just a personal family emergency is the key phrase you want to use. Obviously, you don't want to use this as an excuse every time you want some time off, right? Because if you use it again and again and again and again and again, your boss is going to get suspicious. So be careful. Only use it when it's important, but good bosses, good managers are not going to ask a follow-up question. No. Okay, no problem. So here we've got our three steps: opening the conversation, pre-request, and then setting that context.